Welcome back, everyone, to Profluent Sports. Super excited for this one today. We got my guy, Chad Wilton, who is also a Profluence member, and through that is now launching his next thing, Peak. So, Chad, appreciate you hopping on today and excited to dive into this one.
Thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here.
I know. I was saying before, like, these ones are the toughest for me because I know you so well. We were in Vegas together a couple of weeks ago, and we talk, quite frequently. So, nonetheless, we'll keep it fresh and explore what other people might ask. But I guess to start out, tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll lead it into what you're doing at Peak and in the sports industry in general.
For sure. I can't break guest tradition. I got to give the shout out to Profluent. Honestly,
Hey,
not only the scale and speed, but what I love about Profluence is there's no ego. And that's rare. And that's something that, we're definitely trying to push forward, a huge proponent about with Peak, but it just makes it like a much safer, easier, faster place to build. So shout out to Profluence with that. It's not easy to actually push that forward. You've done a great job, man.
appreciate it.
You and
Appreciate it.
Scott, the whole team.
Thank you.
Yeah, my background, I've been, building large scale global events for the better part of a decade. So I kind of fell into it. I got tapped on the shoulder to join a pretty big conference company. We had about 15,000 annual attendees. I came in, kind of quickly grew within it, found out I absolutely love not only putting on events, but the value behind them from a business standpoint. Yeah, grew quickly in the company. COVID hit during, so imagine a international in-person events company and a global pandemic hits. Yeah, business goes
Tough.
to zero overnight. And our current CEO at the time just said, she couldn't see the path forward and she left, which gave me the opportunity to come in. And it was, yeah, some of the hardest years of my life, but we managed to see it through, came back bigger than ever, were acquired by a $1 billion company. And at that point, the company wants to get its money back, product suffered, and I vested out and left. And so I went looking for my next venture. And that's when I came into contact with my now co-founders of Peak.
Yeah. Before we get to that quickly, what do you love about events so much? I know you mentioned just bringing people together, but what is it about it where you're just like, man, I love putting in 364 days of work, we'll call it, for that 365th day that it all comes together. And I know there are a few day events, but we'll just spotlight it on one day.
Yeah, dude. Like, I think I told you this before. Maybe it was when we were in Vegas, but it is the best high in the world. You plan for a year and you get there and it's done in just a few days. And I gotta say, it's like we live in such a digital forward world. Like right now, obviously we're connecting, it's video. That's way better than email. It's way better than direct messaging, etc. But when you get people together in person, that's when the magic happens. I think that studies have shown like building trust, rapport, doing business, like it accelerates in person. So the business standpoint of what I do, I absolutely love. But I'm an event nerd. A lot of these events that you see, and I will always say each of the events serves its own purpose and there's enough for everybody to go around. But, they're not put on by event organizers. I love the psychology behind events, the amount of detail I spend. So, like you said, a year goes into our events. People are like, a year. Someone reached out because we launched a little bit. We did a soft launch last week, and they're like, we want to get on as a speaker. I won't mention the fund, but they're like, we want to get on as a speaker. And we know it's last minute, but if someone drops out, put us on. And I was like, guys, this is April 2026. What we're building is not what you're used to, cost wise, scale wise. Like, so much goes into it. And so that year of planning, like, I love the psychology behind it. You will not notice the amount of details we put into this event. You won't notice it, but subconsciously, you'll know that it feels different, feels fresh, feels innovative. Like, one thing is threshold. So it's called that threshold. Even before you even get to the event, we're starting to kind of carry you forward to make you feel like when you're there, you leave all of your other shit behind, all the things that are occupying the majority of your brain. You leave that behind because we pulled all these levers, we twisted all these little knobs to make you feel like you're entering a whole nother world. And all you have in your mindset right now is how to do business, how to connect, and how to lead this event better than ever. So yeah, man, I'm an event nerd. I love it. I live for it. And I'll say this, after COVID, our first event back, I remember leaving Vancouver and having dinner, and it was like this, congested little restaurant with 10 people, and then hosting safely 5,000 people indoors for an event, seeing people just light up. So I could go on about this forever. We got lots to
Super
cover,
cool.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
let's get into the, and we'll come back around to that, and obviously in the simplicity, right? I think maybe Steve Jobs or someone talked about that of like, hey, here's the iPhone, and yeah, to all of you it seems like super simple, but it's like there's a million things and events obviously similar. And I think anything, any good product or service, but what are you doing at peak? What is the formation of this event? And obviously I'm sure it will evolve and change over time, but what
Hmm.
is it today, or what is the goal of it heading into year one in almost exactly a year?
Yeah, I mean, even just before we decided to move forward with Peak, like a lot goes into that. Like, we don't want to, my goal, I'm like a hired gun to build for underserved communities. So I don't want to go in and build if there's people already serving it. Like, I don't want to go in and compete with others. Like I said, there's enough to go around. But when we saw the landscape, we were pretty shocked to see that Europe was the one hosting the large scale events in sports tech. So right away, we're like, US doesn't have the flagships? Like, this is wild. There's tons of events. Like obviously, SBJ does a good job with their smaller events. MIT Sloan has a decent scale and tons of smaller events. But no flagship, like no one stop where you can always put that on the calendar, attend that, and then kind of curate the smaller events around it. So we saw this like massive glaring opportunity to build kind of like the AGM for the industry. So it's kind of like the sports tech combine where like innovator scouts can come, like whether you're an executive or investor, you go there because what we want to do is put the biggest spotlight possible on the startup ecosystem. There's tons of deal flow that gets across investors, or there's tons of top 10 lists that like SPJ or other events put out, but like a lot kind of falls through the cracks. And what we want to do is make it as accessible as possible for the entire global startup ecosystem to showcase the product, services, and solutions. And what that takes is us really sacrificing our bottom line. Like we've got a startup program right now where if you apply, I'm gonna, go through applications, and if it's something that we want to make sure that gets that spotlight, I'll give free booths out or at least free tickets, etc. So what's different about us is like scale, but we want to democratize the startup ecosystem for sports tech, and we want to make it kind of accessible for all. I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah.
ways that we can go into how this is going to be different, but I think our end game is really the scale. Within 3 to 4 years, we want to be at 5,000 attendees, 200 exhibitors. You go there, you're not just learning from people on stage. A lot of other events do that, but like you're going to founders, we've got AI training labs for them. We've got different workshops. We got Microsoft's GSIC putting on Groundbreakers Challenge, where all the associations, teams, leagues come up and talk about the problems, and then startups can say, okay, well, we can fix that. So there's tons of things that we're going to be trying to do differently. And like you said, like first show, we learn a lot. We're marketers in a sense too. We collect as much data as possible so that we can constantly refine and refresh and innovate and just keep serving the community.
Amazing. And you had mentioned obviously there was no real flagship in the US. And now, you see this open space, this white space. And then there's some, we'll just call them more media brands or some universities or some teams that do it, but it's, whatever, it's there to serve some need. It's not as a full on business. So what do you see as the difference, or what, like where, I know you talk about the scale, but when you're building an event, it's like, hey, we are just this one event once a year versus these other ones that typically have a lot of other things going on. Like where are they missing, or I guess maybe that does tie into a little bit of the differentiation of like, hey, because we have all these extra hours, we can make this much better, where someone else is just aggregating a small group and putting a little time into it.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, every event serves a purpose. I'll say this though, like, a lot aren't innovating enough. Like, you look at it and you're just seeing like a lot of rinse and repeats. Content for one. Like, I have one, like, even just a team dedicated to making sure that throughout this 12 month lead up, that we're not just like getting the right speakers and names. Like, we want the people in the trenches. So that takes a ton of work and a long time to build out content programs like that. We want to make sure that, we're not just checking boxes of topics that everyone else is adhering to. We've got to deal with supporting crypto to make sure that we're covering like Web3, and we're making sure that we're getting the right subject matter experts on board to help us as partners. It's a beast putting together something of our size. We need to have the right people involved. And so when other events are putting on theirs, it's much more closed doors, and we're actually kind of inviting the community to help us build this because it's ultimately for them.
Yeah, and how do you remain the Switzerland? I'd say a lot of the other events as well, like, they sort of get tied up, whether it's awards or
Yeah.
it's speakers, because it's like, oh, it's our sponsors, right? How do you guys, I know that's a big thing from your team, and maybe go through your team or a little bit, but how do you
Yeah.
keep that Switzerland feel, which I think is a big emphasis, at least, seeing from the launch and what you're doing.
Yeah, man, pay to play, you see that everywhere. I came into the events industry in content. My first role was director of growth and relationships, but I was actually just focused on bringing the right speakers on. And, you work when sponsors and you bring on speaking sponsors, like every conference does it, but you're starting to see this shift. And, we work with them, be like, listen, this is not free. Actually, before we're even going to take your money, what are you going to talk about? What value you're going to actually provide? If it's not like in line with what we're trying to shape for a content strategy, we're not going to take it. It's not worth it. I tell them, like, the easiest way for you to not drum up new business is to get out there and pitch your product, give value, and you'll be surprised at how much you actually get in return. Otherwise, people walk out and it screws the rest of the lineup afterwards, and you make some enemies. Yeah, I mean, the pay to play model it's not long term. We had to fundraise in order for us to build Peak. We have enough runway to weather a few years of poor profit in order to make a much better product. Whereas everyone's very short term and they want to make sure that they can host their next event. But we're like, no, we want to build the trust from the community, and get that scale and making sure a product so it doesn't suffer. That's why I left my last company. I was like, I need to focus on product. I want to serve. So it's a bunch of different reasons and things, but like ultimately, again, we're event nerds. We're always trying to figure out how we can constantly make this as best as possible. And a lot of time that's leveraging technology too, making sure the suite of AI tools that we're all getting inundated with, making sure that we're using the right ones to make a few thousand person event feel like a few hundred. Because when you walk in that door, we're hand holding you to make sure you're meeting the right people, you're going to the right sessions, you're going to the right booths. A lot goes into it. So yeah, leave it to us. We want to make sure that everyone who comes is just like having the easiest, best time ever.
Yeah, it's super cool. And I like the point of the most people that throw events, they do it because they want to make a profit. Like, why else would they do it? Where for this, it's like, no, we're trying to build the best thing for the industry. And to do that, I view Profluence as we build it similarly. And like, hey, I gave a year away of everything for free to build a better product for everyone. And, down the line, very similar thinking with Peak.
Well, I mean, 100%. When we first started talking, like when we first met, you had said you're like, I could turn overnight, like we could have it, but we need to. This is something we want to do. Like your community wants it as well, and I mean that's why we're building alongside Profluence. Andrew, you've been like one of the most like helpful advocates for this from the beginning. Like you've been accessible 24/7, whether you like it or not, but because the community and the industry wants this, and what we build helps Profluence.
Exactly. Now, I guess I know you've brought on some, like, you have a team, right? It's not just you running this, right? Like, and you talked about we're event nerds. If you can go through a few of the other people, I think what's cool about events, but often the people that build them, maybe not the CEO. I was just at Racket X, which is another great event. If people are in racket sports, they should definitely go to that every year. But Robin, she's the CEO, but there's so many other people, right, that takes to go into this. If you can highlight a few of the early people, and like what goes into or what they do, I think it just gives people a better perspective and also appreciation of like, hey, like this is a lot of work. Like you show up and you're like, oh, this isn't here, right? And it's like, yeah, but there's a million things going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I was running a team of 70 at my last company.
Nuts.
Of course, we had 3 events a year, like I said, like nearly 20,000 attendees, et cetera. But fortunately enough, when I left, a lot of people wanted to join whatever I was building next. So first person I brought on was my CMO, CTO, COO, wears all hats, business partner. Like he's been incredible. Like when you build an event, first thing that you want to make sure is that you have the brand identity built out. So you figure that out through text, but then you've got to communicate that visually. My partner, co-founder, he can kind of translate that visually into website branding, we have ads, promo video, which we just launched as well. yeah, the tech side of things, like event tech stack that goes into building this is you don't just set up a Facebook page or Eventbrite. Like we're just plugged in, obviously HubSpot for sales and speakers, script we use for our mobile app. Like there's tons of tech that goes into it as well. And when you look at all of them, they all have to speak to each other. So you're making sure that you're just dialing that in as much as possible. Nine, obviously, we come from marketing and data analytics background, so we want to make sure that our creatives are all dialed in. So design team is pretty crucial. Content is huge. You've got to have the person that actually lives and breathes it, isn't just like a journalist, but someone who, you know, wants to get on the phone 20 times a day and have conversations and make sure that if he's got 20 conversations, one's the ones that are actually going to pan out to be someone interesting. You know, sales, obviously, event operations, it's just huge. Like we've just signed our agency on, and they bring a team of 15 to 20 people. Like the team is explosive if you have the right funds to make sure that what you build can't sacrifice quality.
Yep. And there's obviously a difference in taking an event from 0 to 1 versus, something that's established and going and running it. What's it take, or what, like when you look to a year one, right? You mentioned, hey, year 4 or 5, we want 5,000 attendees, hundreds of exhibitors, right? You can see the end goal. I'm curious, like, as you're building out, like, hey, what is a win for year one, where it's like, all right, we build our base and we're here, like now we can only compound that year over year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like the easy answer is obviously the highest rate possible on our post-show surveys. I hate surveys. No, we build out our top like 100 lists. Who do we want who do we want as attendees? Who do we want as sponsors? Who do we want as speakers? And we rank ourselves internally on how well we did. So yeah, ultimately, I comb through the post-show survey line by line. I'll go through every response. I'll look, I've set up so that I get notified for every attendee that comes in. I'm going to look at who they are. I might check out their LinkedIn. It's going to be interesting because like maybe they'd be a good speaker. Who knows? Maybe they, might want to actually exhibit. I don't know, but I'm going to be just monitoring it closely to make sure that did we hit the mark on our top hundreds? And then yeah, it's a post-show survey. As much as it sucks, it's like still extremely useful things. You just don't get the highest response rate with those. And whoever fills out the survey, like, it's not the best snapshot, but there's always useful information there. So I'll be combing through all of it. I'm not like super fussed on accounts. It's just quality over quantity. But of course, we want to get scale. So I just want to make sure how close do we hit our marks with our top hundreds.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, until we run it, we'll have to run it back next year, of how was year one of peak, where's it going, where's it innovating to. But, I think we've laid a good groundwork. I guess give us information. Where can people learn more? Where can they get early access? The whole 9 yards to, get in position earlier rather than later, because I know you guys have some cool stuff running for yeah.
Yeah, ultimately prices do increase. Profluence members get $200 off. So if you're not part of Profluence, definitely join Profluence. We'll always be doing deals and discounts, etc., for members of your community. But yeah, the website's live. Tickets are on sale this week. Booths will be and sponsorships on sale soon. But if you're interested, just reach out to the contact form on the website, and just follow us across channels, because we're not just going to be promoting things. We're going to be sharing what's going on, trying to be helpful in the community.
Amazing.
But yeah,
Amazing.
tune in.
And it's we'll have the links, but just for anyone listening, I think it's right. Peak, PEAK. You usually do all capitals, and then it's like peakconferenceconf.com.
You got it.
So
You got it.
make sure to check it out, everyone.
Cheers. Thanks,
awesome,
buddy.
All right, Chad. Good stuff, brother.
Talk to you later.